What's up YouTube? It's your boy Anime Princess, and today we're kickstarting this channel back up in anticipation of the Path of Exile 2 beta release. Now leading up to this event, we're going to be using our time to play some of this channel's most requested builds, historically speaking, that we just never got around to making full build guides for. And big surprise, by far the most requested video was a high budget original sin version of Poison Spark. So over the past few weeks on Twitch, we have been building up this character, and today you're going to get the culmination of all of this in a standalone video, which will cover everything you need to know about Poison Spark, including crafting guides for all the rare pieces of gear. Alright, so what can you guys expect from Poison Spark in the current meta of 3.25? Well, first of all, this is a pretty expensive build as it uses original sin, which costs over a mirror. However, if you do have the currency, this is very easy to put together as it uses mostly unique items, and the few rare pieces of gear have very deterministic ways to be crafted, which I will cover in this video. So realistically speaking, if you have a high budget of probably between 1.5 to 2 mirrors, this can easily be assembled over the course of an afternoon. Now I do realize this is pretty expensive, so if you guys are interested in seeing me test out a more budget version that omits the Mage Blood, omits the original sin, I could try and answer the question, is it even worth playing at that budget, or is it going to be too squishy and have too little damage? Or let me know in the comments if you want to see that, and that could be a possible follow-up to this video. Before we get into the POB, I think I should answer the question, why should you or should you not play Poison Spark? Poison Spark's greatest strength is that it's very good with map mods as well as monster mods. We ignore monster proximity shields, and we also ignore energy shield on monsters, which is a nice plus. The only map mods we can't do are ones that brick our mana regen. So the no regen mod, as well as the reduced effect non-cursed auras, because that affects our clarity. Mana is fine under normal circumstances, but due to the many nerfs over the past year, mana costs are a universal problem for all spellcasters, and Poison Spark is no exception here. And while we can technically do every other map mod, there are still some I would suggest you not do. I don't like doing minus max res because having 90 LE res is a pretty nice defense, and I don't like to lower that. I also roll over monsters have chance to avoid poison, as well as monsters suppress spell damage, because the build is already limited by the dot cap, and these two drastically reduce the damage to an almost uncomfortably low amount. Now, being a poison build, we do have a lot of room to fit in defensive layers. The build is spell suppress capped, has 90% max res. My character has 90% evasion going up to 95% when you press Fall Grace, although I am using an evade chance Watcher's Eye. Without that, you could probably get around mid 80s, which is fine because we are pretty good with fizz mitigation as well. Lightning coils converting off half of that fizz into lightning. Arctic armor is reducing some fizz hits, and I am using endurance charges as well for this. The build relies on a Watcher's Eye life gain on hit mod to sustain our life pool. Now we have hundreds of sparks flying around at all times, so that's pretty good recovery. Now all of this isn't even mentioning Defiance of Destiny as well as Progenesis. Progenesis almost seems like an overkill, and if you're doing easier mapping strats, you could substitute this with the Cyrus Explode Flask to get better clear, since we are original sin, so all those explosions are going to be chaos damage. But for the really hard content, you will want to be using that Progenesis as it's quite high value. Now, moving on to the downsides of this build archetype, the worst offender would be the slow/delayed application of damage. We are limited by dot cap, which is slightly under 40 million. However, this is very misleading because that is 40 million when your damage is fully ramped. You're not getting 40 million per hit, so nothing is going to be instantly deleted. And if you're used to playing crit builds, that is going to feel really weird, and it does mean you will be tanking a lot of damage, which is why we have such high defenses in the first place. Now this weakness is going to be most apparent in really big boss arenas such as Uber Cyrus and Uber Searing Exarch, because we need to have those walls to be able to hit multiple times to be able to hit dot cap. So you aren't even going to be able to hit dot cap in some scenarios here. Original Sin also has the downside where it only affects enemies nearby, and that nearby is approximately 2/3 of your screen when you're playing on a normal non-ultra wide monitor. So again, you are going to be fighting the hardest monsters in the map in an almost melee playstyle where you're right in front of them and they're just bashing you in the face. And thankfully, you know, we can tank those hits, but it will feel really weird when you're coming from non-poison spark. Damage issues aside, I would say the build is also a little tight on stats. I do have overcapped res enough to account for exposure, but not enough to deal with the minus res alters. However, we are a Widowhail build with a crafted suffix. I use a crafted suffix that gives us frenzy charges, and realistically, you actually don't want frenzy charges if you are farming altars, because one of the bad mods is based on frenzy charge. So if you do want to overcap your resistances for those altars, just recraft the Widowhail suffix into either lightning and cold or fire and chaos, and the Widowhail will multiply those resistances enough to let you do those altar farming strategies. Moving into the actual build guide part of this video, I will include in the YouTube description 2 separate POB links. The first one is a very standardized Poison Spark build, which doesn't have too much personalization in it. So this is good for you guys when you're assembling your character because it's very easy to put together. But we're going to keep this here as a resource for like your day one character. And what I'm going to spend my time talking about is my actual character over here, where I'm doing some little tricks as well as some more optimizations such as clusters to get the most out of the character. So let's look at my actual character in game right now. We are a Widowhail build, which means everything on the Quiver is being multiplied by 3.5 times. So take a quick look at the Quiver. The Quiver is giving us, in the implicit, a ton of projectile speed. It's giving us 7 pierce when you multiply out that prefix, a ton of life. It's giving us a lot of flat damage. Flat damage is great for non-Archmage variants of Spark because that is going to give us the really big hit that gives us a big poison. And this LE damage is being converted into chaos damage through Original Sin. Giving even more projectile speed, and the suffix is giving us a lot of our chance to poison. You need to hit 100% chance to poison with this build, and you can do it through the suffix on the Quiver. I have a T2 Exalt Slam here, so I got a little bit unlucky on the crafting process. It's a 50-50, but as you can see with this character, you don't need to hit T1 to hit 100% chance to poison, which is quite nice. And then we're getting frenzy charges as well on this. For the helmet, it's a pretty basic helmet. The implicits do matter. We're getting +2 to maximum lightning resistance, and we are pushing the lightning res all the way to 94% because then you can combine that with the jewel melding of the flesh to give us 90 to every resistance. And the rest of this helmet is just crafted with the mana reservation essence to give us some basic stats. The body armor is a lightning coil. This is just really meta for a defensive option. We are getting +1 to max res, which is giving us +1 to lightning res. You don't actually have to have this corruption because we do have a rare jewel socket and you can get max res on jewels. So that would be another way to get it. You could also opt for a +4 or a +3 to skill gems because again, leveling up your Spark skill gem increases the flat damage it does, which is in turn going to increase our poison. But I only opted for a +2. So you could go for projectile gems, duration gems, or +1 to all skill gems. Those would all be valid implicits. I don't have any corruption on the Widowhail. You could opt for Frenzy on Kill. A lot of the good implicits on the bow would be adding extra gem links, so like chance to blind or faster projectiles. But I feel like on non-Archmage builds, again, the mana issues are so tight when you're adding a 7th or an 8th link. it makes stuff really messy. So that's why we're opting to just do a 6th link in the body armor. We don't need a corruption really. We have Original Sin. Again, the whole build revolves around this because you can only poison with chaos or fizz damage, and spark is by default, if I take this off, LE damage. So this is turning all our LE damage into chaos damage, which in turn allows this 100% chance to poison to actually poison the enemy. So again, you cannot skip this. The build will not poison without the Original Sin. This ring, I'll have a crafting process in the section that also goes over the Quiver. There's various rings you can get, but basically you want to have the reduced mana cost on here. Life is quite nice. Damage over time multi is a great way to scale damage. Now we have some increased damage on here, cast speed, damage recouped his life. I would say the only thing mandatory on here is the -8 total mana cost, which we get by using the quality. And everything else on here, you know, you could do this if you want, but you could also skip out on the rest. We're using Soul Ascension gloves. So Soul Ascension gives us Soul Eater as long as we've hit a rare or unique enemy. You can only get 1 sack of Soul Eater every half second. This is particularly good on Poison Spark because our sparks are shooting out really, really far away, and they're not instantly killing enemies, so we are going to be always hitting something rare or unique in any sort of juiced map at all times. Since the monsters don't instantly die, this gives us a ton of cast speed and a lot of damage. It's a Mage Blood build, and these boots are very standard boots. These implicits are not mandatory. We're getting action speed and increased the speed of our poison. You don't have to have those if you don't want to. In fact, the standard PoB is just going to go for some ailment immunity boots coupled with the ailment immune gem, which we'll go over later. But on my character, I don't even need that. We're getting ailment immunity elsewhere. So I'm able to get, you know, just a bunch of resistances, honestly, since the build is quite starved for those suffixes. We just got to get them somewhere. For the Mage Blood flasks, obviously you're going to have a Topaz flask because that's giving us a lot of the maximum lightning res to hit the 94% breakpoint we need. We are doing Quartz flask for spell suppress cap as well as phasing. We are going to be in melee range of enemies, so you do need to have that phasing. Silver flask, I'm opting to not use a Quicksilver, so in my opinion you need to at least have a silver because you're getting like double effective onslaught, which sort of makes up for it. It gives us a bunch of movement speed. And a Jade flask, since we are trying to get really high evasion values. Progenesis is the ultimate defensive flask. Now, if you were to do easier content, like this is set up to do the Titanic Rogue Exiles strategy. If I wanted to do just normal mapping or even T17 mapping, the Oriath End is going to give us Chaos Explosions, which is quite comfortable for just speeding through the maps. And you probably won't need to have evasion cap because the character is pretty tanky even without the evasion defensive layer. So yeah, this is an option to peel off if you want to go faster. Suffixes, again, just evasion. We have stun immunity, some life regen, and some resistances. For the skill gems, we are using a 6th link for auras. I like to use Malevolence, Grace, Purity of Lightning, Arctic Armor, Clarity. Arctic Armor is quite nice because whenever you're casting Spark, you are by definition stationary. So you will be stationary most of the time. For the 6th link, we have Spark of the Nova, just to get really good coverage. Awakened LE Focus, Awakened Unbound Elements, Inspiration, which helps reduce the mana cost to an acceptable level. Deadly Elements, and Spell Echo. You don't need to really go for the Awakened Spell Echo, because the big part of that would be the double damage, although double damage does not, in fact, double or poison damage. I think you get like a little bit more cast speed, but it's such a big bump up in cost. It's like extreme luxury. We are using... Okay, so we have Vitality here purely for the Watcher's Eye. For our Watcher's Eye, I would say non-channeling skills -10 is absolutely mandatory. It would be really nice to get the life gain on hit. It drastically increases our defense. And I do have a third mod here for Evade, but that's honestly, like, I got super lucky to be able to get this. I would just go for the Vitality and the Clarity mods. That's all you really need. And that's why we have the Vitality here at level 1. Sigil of Power. This does give us a significant amount of flat damage just by standing in it. You don't even really need to charge it up. Just the basic level 1 is fine. For our movement skills, I have Frostblink, Wintry Blast paired with Spell Echo. And I also have a regular Frostblink. Some people ask, why are you using both of these? It's because when you're doing bosses, like Uber bosses, a lot of them have something that's going to slow you. And anything that slows your action speed also slows the cast point on Frostblink. And you will die because of this. So normal Frostblink is instant. And that's why I like to have both. And now because we are using the Frostblink, it means we can't use Withering Step, because Withering Step will put this on cooldown. And that's the reason I opt to not use Withering Step in this setup. For the rest of the gems, we do just have an open 4-link, so I opted to choose Guardian Blessing support coupled with Meat Shield, Raised Spectre, and Haste. So the way this works is you're going to need to buy, actually ideally 2 Dark Marionettes. They're like 20 Chaos. And if you just right click it, well, you see I already have 2 of them following me. But when you right click it, it just throws it onto the ground. There'll be like a corpse in your hideout, and then you raise Spectre and it's going to raise 1. And you do it twice and you have 2. And I think you need level 21 gem, or maybe 20 to have 2 Spectres. I'm not sure. I think it's 21. And so now you're going to have an aura that you can press. So it's haste. And when you press it, these minions slowly kill themselves. But in a map, they're also going to get hit, so they're going to die faster. And that's why I like to have 2. Because if one of them dies, I still have the other one. And these are providing me this haste aura. And it's just a free aura on a button if you want to press it. It's nice in, you know, bossing scenarios or stuff where they actually might not be getting killed. But if you're doing super juice maps, honestly, they do stay alive, you know, for under most circumstances. But this is like an optional thing you can do. So yeah, we talked about Frostblink, and then I just have automation with a steel skin. Now as for the passive tree, I think the first thing to note is that we're not only using a Militant Faith that gives reduced mana cost as well as ally resistances, it's also giving us a specific node called Cloistered, which gives us ailment immunity while on consecrated ground. In the baseline path of building, we are getting our ailment immunity through ailment immune boots with a jewel, but in this case, we're able to take out that ailment immunity jewel and replace it with Rational Doctrine. Now this gives us consecrated ground if our strength is highest, and it gives us profane ground if our intelligence is highest. Profane ground gives us 10% increased effect of our curses as well as increased crit strike, and consecrated ground gives us obviously the ailment immunity through Cloistered, as well as giving us 5% life regen and 50% reduced effect of curses on us. It's really easy to balance your strength and your int, so I would just balance them. But really, the main thing that matters is that at least your strength is your highest attribute. And you will find with this build, you actually have to tattoo. Basically, I am tattooing every single dex node just to get the dex lower than the strength and the int. And the strength and int they need to be, I think, 159 at bare minimum to be able to use our gems. So we're not really investing any more than we have to in those either. So that is a little trick that you could do, but I wouldn't recommend doing it right at the start, because I had to go through like 50 different militant faiths until I found one that actually gave me this cloister node, because they don't all change nodes. We are using Unnatural Instinct as well. Now mine gives me Corrupted Blood. You don't have to get Corrupted Blood here. We do have a rare jewel slot, which would be the prime candidate for getting our Corrupted Blood immunity. But this is just good value because it's allocating a lot of nodes for the Militant Faith, which is then giving us a lot of reduced mana cost, a lot of LA resistance. Melding of the Flesh, again, this is how we get 90 all res. I mentioned earlier, the Mandatory Watcher's Eye mods are -10 to total mana cost, and I would say a close second is getting the life gain on hit on there. This is a pretty good spot for Light of Meaning. You can't actually put Light of Meaning in this trifecta over here because it's not going to give anything for all of these 10 devotion nodes. So I think it makes a little bit more sense over here. Since we aren't using Withering Step, I do highly value the Mastery 5% chance when you inflict Withered to inflict 15 Wither debuffs instead. I don't think we're able to cap Wither if we don't have this. We're using a Thread of Hope in a large ring. It just gives us some good damage nodes here. Dot multi, life regen. Decent life node there. Skill effect duration, damage over time. Again, some more damage over time, multi-skill effect duration. There's a ton of good nodes. Now, we have a large cluster specifically for this build. It's not too hard to craft. There will be crafting instructions at the end of this video. The medium cluster, you can get whatever you want on it. I just went for Wicked Paw, Septic Spells. There's quite a few good options. Now, this is also not in the baseline paw, but for my character, I wanted to get endurance charges, and the easiest way to get that is on a Megalomaniac. So we have Enduring Composure as well as reduced mana reservation of Malevolence. And I suppose you wouldn't have to get both of these two, since we do have a few 50% auras. You could opt to get the Grace reservation efficiency, right? Because that's also in here. You could also possibly get Haste reservation efficiency and then put a different aura in the on the Divine Blessing or on the Guardian's Blessing. So there's a few options here. Or you could just opt to not go endurance charges, because we do have a lot of fizz reduction. It's just, you know, this is the extra step. So that is the passive tree. I guess we could look at the tattoos. Now, we are using tattoos to balance the strength and the int, as well as using a blessed orb on the strength on the Mage Lord belt, just to make it exactly equal. I am getting, I believe, a little bit of poison chance through a tattoo somewhere. Am I? And that, if I am, it's because I have the T2 on the Quiver. But most of them are projectile speed, and I have 2 suppression tattoos. They're almost exclusively just taking off dex to lower the dex to be below the strength and the int. So actually, maybe, am I not getting... Yeah, there's one 5% chance to poison on hit. And that's giving me 100% chance to poison. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. A few little somewhat specific things that are optional. It's more for min-maxing. All right, that's the character in a nutshell. I guess we can move on to the crafting guides. Our quiver is the centerpiece of this build, and I think this is an important enough craft that some of you guys are going to benefit from watching me literally do the craft in this video. I'm probably going to put the crafting instructions on screen in text format. They're also going to be found in the notes section of the POB, and I will be walking through step by step as we craft a second quiver for my character. Okay, so to start things off, you're going to want a feathered arrow quiver because the implicit is projectile speed, which we like, and it should be eye level 82 or higher. Preferably eye level 82, which will give you slightly better odds, but it doesn't really matter as long as it's at least 82. I'm going to start off by slamming Essence of Insanity, which gives us a prefix of 2 pierce, and we are looking for a decent life roll in the prefixes, and that's it. We just want that 1 mod. So my first hit, we actually did get T2 life. If you look on Craft of Exile, it should take on average 15 attempts if you're going to settle for T2, and if you want T1, it's going to take 30. So I'm actually just going to stop right here. I think T2 is more than enough. It's going to need to have an open prefix and an open suffix. Right here, you can see there is an open prefix and there isn't an open suffix, which means I do need to annul off a suffix. And we annulled off the suffix. So that is pretty simple. If you had 3 prefixes and like 1 suffix, you could consider doing like remove prefix, add suffix beast. There are some tricks there, but generally speaking, you just want to annul. Let's assume I had open prefix and I had extra suffixes. If that was the case, you would craft on a random prefix so that your prefixes are full, and then you would exalt slam until you have 2 suffixes. But since this is already done, now we're going to craft prefixes can't be changed. So we're on to step 3. Or no, I'm on to step 4 according to my notes. So we're gonna have to hit a veiled orb here, and we want the veiled orb to give us a veiled prefix. So the way this is gonna work is the veiled orb has to remove a suffix, and then there's gonna be 1 open suffix and 1 open prefix, and it's a 50-50 if the veiled text goes prefix or suffix. So we're just gonna have to gamble here. We got we got a prefix. We won the 50-50. So when you get a prefix, you go and unveil it. And you're gonna choose the flat damage option. The hybrid flat damage. So that's that step done, and now we are going to craft on prefix can't be changed again. Our prefixes are done at this point, and we're gonna reforge speed, and it's a 1 in 7 chance to get T1 projectile speed, or honestly, if you want to settle for T2, which is more than fine, it is a 2 out of 7. And there's a very small chance it'll fill up your suffixes, but there's nothing that can be done about that. You just have to take the risk. It's very low. So I hit the 1 in 7. I'm making this look really easy because we're basically done now. Now we have 2 suffixes left. The first one is a Hunter's Exalted Orb. You can't slam it on yet. Hold up, guys. We need to block the other Hunter mods. All the other Hunter mods are attack mods, so we're gonna do cannot roll attack modifiers. And just to show you this in practice, when you pull up Craft of Exile, you go down to Hunter modifiers, and we can only hit a suffixes because our prefixes are full. We want the chance to poison with increased damage to poison, so that's there's 2 tiers of that, and all the rest have an attack tag. So now that we're blocking attacks with cannot roll attack, this is going to hit T2 or T1. And honestly, the one I have right now low rolled and hit T2, and that's perfectly fine. We're still able to cap our poison chance. But let's see if I get a bit luckier here and hit T1. I hit T2 again, but that's fine. Don't worry about hitting T2. The quiver is good enough with T2. So once all of that is done, now we just need to craft on an actual suffix that we want. So I like to do crit chance with chance to gain frenzy on critical strike. We are a non-crit build, but we do have enough sparks and we do have enough just base crit even on a non-crit build where you should be able to sustain your frenzy charges even with this. However, as I stated earlier in the video, you can adjust your quiver for altars by getting a ton of cold and lightning res. This is 20, but it's multiplied by 3.5. So you're getting 70 cold and lightning res. Or with the fire and chaos, you're gonna get what is 15 times 3.5? I can't do that in my head. That's 52 fire and chaos res if you want to do the Exarch altar. And I suppose if you can't quite get the strength and int on your gear, another good use of a suffix is getting a ton of strength and int. So those are our options here, but I'm going to stick with the global crit strike with chance to gain frenzy on critical strike. And I guess this quiver is slightly better than my current quiver because I settled for T2 projectile speed here and we hit T1. So I guess I'll swap those around. That is the craft in a nutshell. I made this look really easy, but do keep in mind there were a few, well, there was a 50-50 on the Veiled Orb that we got lucky and hit first try. And the Reforged Speed, we hit first try. You may need a few tries there. And if you fail on the Reforged Speed, like you hit a suffix you don't like, then you're going to craft on prefix can't be changed, scour, and then do prefix can't be changed, reroll. Actually, no, hold on. If you hit a bad Reforged Speed, you don't need to scour. You just do prefix can't be changed again and do another harvest hit. Because, this will erase all the bad suffixes and just give you another proj speed roll. Or there's like a low chance it gives attack speed, but again, you would just roll over it. So that is the quiver craft. Hope this helps. And if you ever get to a step where you're confused, please use my Discord as a resource. There's literally like over 3,000 players in there who have good Spark experience. Not all of them have played Poison Spark because again, this is my first video for Poison Spark, but there are definitely people who could help you out with these steps if you are confused. Next up is the Cogwork Ring, which is a double essence craft. And I want to state right off the bat, this is a much less important craft than the Quiver because the only thing we truly need here is the -8 total mana cost, which is a bench craft. So you're going to get that no matter what. I will, however, go over the deterministic way to craft all of these stats because I was trying to get all these stats. I think these are very powerful and this is something you could be aiming for your ring. Okay, so to start things off, you do want to have a Cogwork Ring of at least eye level 79. And we're going to start things off by using Essence of Delirium until you hit 15% roll on the guaranteed damage over time multiplier. And once you hit this, you're going to want to annul down to 4 mods and then Fracture Orb. And it's a 1 in 4 chance that you're going to hit Fractured damage over time multiplier, which with the Cogwork base is going to be boosted from 15 to 18%. Next up, we're going to be spamming Deafening Essence of Envy, which guarantees us chaos damage. And we're going to be hitting this until we get T1 damage taken recouped as life. Once we hit this, we are going to hopefully have an open prefix. You will very likely have that. And you're going to craft suffixes can't be changed. You're going to go over to your harvest bench and reforge caster. Now we've locked in dot multi, damage recouped as life, and chaos damage, and this will guarantee a cast speed roll in the final suffix. And there are 3 tiers, T1, 2, 3, and they all have equal weighting. So as you can see, I hit a T2 and decided that was just fine. Now to finish things off, you can craft suffix can't be changed again. In fact, I believe you can use a wild matron beast at this point instead if you want to save a little bit of money. And then you reforge life, hopefully getting a decent roll of life. And you're going to finish things off by crafting non-channeling skills to have minus total mana cost. And you're going to quality it with the red catalysts, the fertile catalysts. Again, you do not need to hit every single one of these mods, but that is how I got all of my mods on the ring. Now onto the large cluster jewel. You need a very specific base. It should have adds 12 passive skills. Added small passive skills grant 12% increased lightning damage, and it needs to be minimum item level 85. And the way I like to do things is I like to spam chaos orbs until I get the 35% increased effect, which should take 24 chaos orbs. And ideally, it would have another one of the mods we would like before we fracture it, so it's a 50% chance to fracture. So the other options you can get for the prefix, you can either get flat maximum life, or you can get flat percentage increased damage. I would be happy with either of those, but one of them has to be the increased effect. So it's increased effect with either flat life or flat damage. For the suffixes, you could go for the increased cast speed with attack speed. That's some nice damage. You could go for the 4% to all Ellie res, or you could go for the +4 to all attributes, since we do have attribute issues and, you know, we also have resistance issues. So whether you get the attributes or the res sort of dictates what you're trying to get for the helmet and the boot suffixes. So in my case, I did end up with the fractured all attributes because we missed the 35% increased effect. So I had to hit the 35% increased effect again. And once you do get the fracture of one of these, either increased effect or something else, what I recommend doing is just simply spamming Reforge Caster over and over again. It only costs 75 blue juice, but this guarantees you're going to get one of these, and they're all the same weighting. So either going to get 1%, 2%, or 3% attack and cast speed, because this is the only thing with the caster tag. So you're going to have your fractured mod and you're going to have the cast speed. And if you do hit the T3 cast speed, then you can try and Exalt Slam, or, you know, annul and then Exalt Slam the other two. And it shouldn't take too long. I mean, I might upload the clip of me actually crafting mine on my alt channel. I'm not too sure. I'll have to find it in my VODs. But really, it's just spamming Harvest Juice until you get it. I would say it's probably less frustrating than the Quiver, even though I made the Quiver look pretty easy. But anyways, that's it. You could also trade search this, but I think it would be a lot more expensive if you tried to buy one on trade. I was searching, and these are pretty expensive clusters pre-made. So I do suggest following this very simple method of just RNGing one yourself. The last two pieces of crafted gear are the rare helmet and the rare boots. And these are really basic crafts, so we're not going to spend too much time on them. I'm just going to go over briefly how they were made. So I aimed for Fractured Suffix. I wanted Chaos Res to cap my Chaos Res. So we're just using Deafening Essence of Loathing, which guarantees us mana reservation efficiency of skills. And you just hit this till your prefixes look all right. Or you can also use some Eldritch Currency to clean up the prefixes if you want. It's up to you. I wanted to craft Strength and Int because I was a little bit low in Strength and Int and I didn't want to get it on the Quiver. But, you know, depending what you choose, you could get it on the Quiver and craft something else on the helmet. As for the implicits, these actually are important. Now you could opt to get the maximum lightning res on a rare jewel if you wanted. I decided to get it on the helmet, and the way you get it on the helmet is you spam the 3rd tier of Exile currency because it's not too expensive until you get +1 to maximum lightning res, and then you're gonna have to conflict it up 2 times. So the way conflicts work is they tend to bias towards lowering the higher value and raising the lower one. So we have a T3 red mod, so we're gonna hit a single T4 blue mod, and that's gonna give us a better chance of elevating it the first time. And if that succeeds, now we're back down to a tier 3 blue mod, so you have to hit tier 4 of the Ichor again. So now it's a T4 red and a T4 blue, and it's a 50-50. And if you lose it, you just, you know, you click again, because if you lose 50-50, suddenly it's weighted more heavily that you will win again. You could take a bunch of Orb of Conflicts, but it's not too hard. We're only aiming for T5, we're not aiming for T6. The other one is Grand Ichor for mana reservation efficiency. As for the boots, I really only wanted, you know, a bunch of resistances because that's what we needed. So I chose any one of the resistance essences. Hatred, Anger, Wrath, and I just spammed it until I got another T1 suffix. And I have a fractured 35% movement speed. So once we have the 2 suffixes, I could use Eldritch Currency to get some life on the boot, and then I just crafted more resistances, and we're done here. As for the implicits, these are not important by any means, but I like to get poisons you inflict deal damage faster, as well as action speed. They're 2 good implicits, so I would just suggest possibly doing the same thing. Those you honestly could probably fix your stats by just buying 2 things off of trade if you wanted, but again, they're very simple to craft as well, so there is how to do it. And if you aren't following my second POB, because all my instructions here are on the more complicated second POB, if you're following the basic POB, you're just going to want to have a standard pair of ailment immunity boots. And I have a guide on my channel for how to craft those. You can look up 3.25 crafting guide, 100% ailment immunity, and it goes over exactly how to craft this very standard pair of boots that you're going to pair with the ailment immunity jewel. All right, that is all the crafting. If you have any issues, again, drop by the Discord and we'll get you sorted out. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll be streaming this on Twitch for the upcoming few days probably. The character is all finished. I've been enjoying it. Possibly if you guys want to see me do a budget version, I might be streaming a non-original Sin Poison Spark. And so hope to see you on Twitch. Hope you enjoy the video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.